Welcome back to the channel, Outriders. Today we have another Pyro build. I consider this probably the best well-rounded build for group play. It is okay for solo. I still prefer my Eruption build. There's some good phaser builds out there that are great for solo, and of course some of the speedrun variants with overheat are amazing. But this one I think it checks all the boxes, right? It's just well-rounded, and it is a debuff build, but also has a bit of punch on its own. And I run it a little different than some other people. So what the three abilities I am using are Heat Wave, Phaser Beam, and Thermal Bomb. This is a debuff build where Thermal Bomb and Heat Wave are going to come in as a debuff and really amplify the damage of my teammates, not only them, but myself as well. And the one damage dealer option I do have here is Phaser Beam. I see a lot of people use Overheat or maybe even a singular Eruption. So they got a bit of burst against ball assisting is how you are debuffing them. I chose Phaser Beam because I can get it down to a 6-second cooldown. I hit about 1.7 per combo, 1.7 million. That's some pretty decent damage for a debuff build, right? And I feel fairly confident with it. It can shoot through walls and, of course, you know, get some distance between it, which is honestly what a lot of these ability builds and anomaly builds lack. So that's my setup right there. As for the class, you're going to notice this tree is a little weird. We don't take it to the tip. We just stop right shy. And we do a few things. So as I said, I'm not using some of the explosive options, right? I'm only simply using Thermal Bomb, and I'm using it for the debuff, not necessarily the strength of the Thermal Bomb itself. So I'm not doing cooldown on this tree. I'm doing strictly damage, fire damage. I come up here for Extinction. I go down here with Fire and Anomaly. Phoenix just for a little bit of survivability, and I do take it to Flames that burn twice, so the extra damage is great. As you notice in the first branch, I go up through Wildfire for overall cooldowns, and I go with Ignite. And the warm-up options are great because I'm reducing 15% of my Heat Wave and my Phaser Beam, which is, again, where we get some pretty solid. That chops like about 1.5 seconds off of each of those cooldowns and really just optimizes overall DPS throughout a run. And then, of course, ticking this Meltdown helps out tremendously. Now, for the build I'm using, the traditional Anomaly setup, I'm not going to go too far into this. You guys have seen this before if you've looked up Anomaly builds. So the Funeral Pyre and Death Shield are an iconic PB&J kind of combo, right? They each have a mod that complements the other well, and that's what I do. Shadow Comet and Fortress, Shadow Comet and Fortress, weapon swap if you want. It's great. Now, the Akari 3-piece is pretty much essential to almost every build now, and this one doesn't really just change that. You're looking at Anomaly, Skill, Life Leech, Status, Power, and of course, cooldown on this build is great. But the Akari 3-piece, every enemy damaged by Heat Wave grants 50% Anomaly Power bonus for 10 seconds. That really just amplifies my power and my strength, and that's great. I do keep the Fire Tsunami on this as it's a native perk, and it is the increasing the width of the firewall. I slap on Burnt Out because that's where you get the debuff. Damaged enemies take 25% more damage for 8 seconds, and that's just in general, and it stacks. Seeing as how I'm running 3 Heat Waves, that's 75% more damage received on that enemy. So that's a huge debuff. That's not just for me, that's for my teammates as well. So for the chest piece, we have Branded on here. This is where the other debuff option comes in. 40% more damage if you've been hit by a Thermal Bomb. I can stack 2 of these on one enemy or one boss and really amplify that and take it up to 80%. On top of the potential 3 Heat Waves, that's 75% debuff with an 80%. That's massive, right? That's going to be big numbers, and that's from all sources. My teammates are going to be hitting harder. I had a buddy I was playing with who's a new techno, still putting his build together, and because I was running this, his crits were going from 300 to 400k all the way up to 2 million. That's it. That's what makes this build so much better for squad play than some of the other ones, and that is simply because you are going to make your teammates stronger. You can still carry your own weight, right? But you basically convert any standard DPS role into like 4 to 5 times the damage they normally do, so the clearing potential is amplified. It's like having 5 extra Technomancers with you. It's huge, and that's just in place of one guy. I'm also using Tidal Wave again to get a secondary Heat Wave. Third up here, I have Anomaly Echo, which is naturally going to be on the Waistcloth here with the Akari. Not much I can do about that because the other mod's not really worth keeping. I have Size Matters with Phaser Beam. Increase the beam's radius by 100%. I like it thicker, and it really does, in fact, matter. For the gloves, we have some cooldown reduction finally. I've got Ride the Wave for my third and final Heat Wave. I've got Emergency Stance on this thing. I'm going to be honest with you. I like it. I don't need it, especially seeing as how I'm built into Phoenix on bottom tree. It's there, but I'm willing to sacrifice it, and I will with a future build. The boots, Frequent Phaser. Phaser Beam reduces the skill's cooldown by 30%. A lot of people look at this and don't like using it. There's one major reason I like it with this combination, and that is because it keeps the combo alive. The time that it takes me to get my 3 Heat Waves off, my 2 Thermal Bombs, and call in a Phaser Beam the next wave of combos, you know, Heat Wave is up, Thermal Bomb is up. I have to wait a few more seconds for Phaser, and my combos just get all out of whack. This 30% reduction keeps it on par. So it's 3 Heat Waves, 2 Thermal Bombs, a Phaser Beam. And immediately after that Phaser Beam, my Heat Waves are off cooldown and ready to go again, and I keep chaining those combos. So this is a must-have. I know a lot of people sleep on it, and I guess it probably wouldn't be viable for all builds, but for mine, it's huge. Lastly, we have the Thermal Bomb Fire Frenzy, where we get an additional Thermal Bomb, so that takes us up to 2 total. But you show some gameplay and talk a little bit about it. Now, as I said, this build has some extreme flexibility. As you can see, I'm using Phaser Beam. Some people prefer Overheat, Eruption, and I fully expect to sacrifice the 2 mods that I currently have for Phaser Beam and slap on 2 additional Eruptions. That way it'll take my count up to 3. Sacrifice Emergency Stance so I can put on the Radius one. So I basically have 3 Eruptions with Radius. I'll have the 3 Heat Waves with Burnt Out, so that's the 75% debuff. And I'll still have my 2 Thermal Bombs with Branded. That will give me the additional 80%. So I have a lot of damage, a lot of spread damage because of the Radius on the Eruption. So I have some really cool things I plan on doing on the future, and that's where this build comes together. You could take this build even further in the debuff route if you want to completely get rid of any damage options and put on Ash Blast. There is a debuff tier 3 mod on that really opens it up and takes you up to like 200% debuff. It's pretty massive. So like I said, this is kind of like a template to work with. I like Phaser Beam. You could use Overheat. You can use Ash Blast for more debuff route options. There's so many things, but realistically, the core of this build is the double thermal with Branded and the Heat Wave with Burnt Out. Anything beyond that, you have 3 or 4 mod slots that you have flexibility with, and you honestly just play with it until you find something, or just, I guess, adapt and move it around for what you need. So the reason I've officially crowned this one king of the Pyro builds is because of its flexibility. Now, could I go to the debuff route, right? The Ash Blast perk that basically takes me up and gives us a lot of extra damage, yes. But then I don't have necessarily any punching power myself. I'm fully reliant on my teammates, which is great, but it's situational. What if I'm playing with friends that do not have complete builds or need carried or are just trying to get through some T15s and generally struggle? The 2 guys that I'm currently playing with right now cannot handle gold tier 15s on their own, but we're able to slap these runs down. Could I do this with my Eruption build? No, I don't think I would have been able to get through this gold with this team on my triple Eruption build, and that's why I think this build is great. It can do solo T15 gold content, including Boomtown. Not as fast as some of the other options, but it can. So this one is the total package. It can do everything that this game throws at it. Other ones will lack in squad play. Other ones will lack in other areas. This one doesn't really have a flaw, and I think that's what makes it so good. And I think with the customization and the flexibility, you could always just swap a couple pieces of gear around or re-roll a mod or 2, and you've converted this into a full debuff build. Swap a couple mods, you now have Eruption for more single target or clear, even better solo options. And that's what makes this one so freaking amazing. So guys, thanks for all the love. If you haven't subscribed yet, we do a lot of build, a lot of content, Trickster and Devastator on the way soon. If you can, hit that button. I'll catch you with another video soon.